Welcome everyone to another episode of Price Targets with your host Bitcoin Jack. Welcome to another week of Bitcoin ripping off your face. I'm not really sure where we left off last week, but it kind of seems that the whole thing that we talked about is playing out. I'm still very keen on the November 23rd time pivot, give or take a few days to become a top pivot, and at this speed it kind of looks like it's working out. So as expected, we traded through this range and price had a very hard time going through this 16.2 level, but as it claimed it this week, I think we are entering really dangerous territory for bears, because what's happening right now is we're literally accelerating from a steeper angle to steeper angle to steeper angle. And generally when that happens, we're talking about a serious blow off top, because certainly somehow this move has been sustained by sellers. Without sellers, price cannot really move up that much. Nobody's going to buy the last 2%. Well, someone will, but anyone with a proper mind won't. So we can't expect this to continue steeper and steeper and steeper, even on a logarithmic scale, to accelerate. So if we go down to daily, we can see how we have this giant shape right here, the Livermore cylinder. It broke out, it retested itself. The smaller baby Livermore cylinder did the same. Both got retested and moving higher. So this is a very strange situation, because what I'm about to show you is something that nobody is going to accept me saying, but I really think this is what's going to happen. Everyone's looking at a potentially bearish pattern right here, a rising wedge, so to say, but it doesn't fit a rising wedge that nicely. If this is part of the wedge, then this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then technically it's a beautiful wedge. Unfortunately, I don't think this belongs to it. So this right here is bam, 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 bam. This is the corrective pattern, and this is just the bonus, the start of the next rally that everyone's mistaking for a rising wedge. This is just some kind of ABC pattern, or WXY, or whatever people call it. I don't really care. It fits the pattern. A and then, well, WX something. And we had a beautiful, super beautiful 1 hour probably fits best. Yes, we had a beautiful descending broadening wedge as we retested the support. And it's actually a really bullish descending broadening wedge, because this is the first touch, this is the second touch, and this right here is the third touch, which didn't even manage to come down here, which would have been very bearish actually. Because if you remember last week's video, we talked about price was somewhere up here, and it was actually up here. This was the support I outlined, which held beautifully, bounced out of, and if it actually went under here, I would have been bearish. That said, we are breaking out of that, and everyone's looking at this rising wedge pattern, and I'm gonna give it to you. I don't see it. It doesn't fit the bill. There is if this is the one, then it doesn't fit the bill, because this is way too impulsive. So then where does it start? Then is this is corrective, this is corrective, this is corrective, but the angle, the direction, and everything else doesn't fit the bill. So this is not a rising wedge. Let's go back to the 4 hour. So if this is not a rising wedge, then it's a diagonal resistance that's even steeper, or comparatively as steep as this one. I would say it's steeper, because the bottom trend line slopes up way harder. And it's yet another diagonal. First we crushed this diagonal, accelerating. Then we crushed this diagonal. And we're just going to continue crushing diagonals. And that's what happens in parabolic growth. This chart is not clean anymore, but I can just show you. Let me just do it non-logarithmically. How we're accelerating. And if you've been a long time follower on my Twitter, you know that I like to count the amount of accelerations that occur in a trend to define whether it's a real parabola and whether it's actually getting close to the end. I'm not going to comment on it. You'll have to figure this one out for yourself. So this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. Then we have a 5th acceleration right here. Something like this. And as you can see, if we break out of this one, I think there's a 6th, a 7th, and an 8th acceleration that's going to happen within the scope of a few days. Literally, we have our pivot on the 23rd of November. I think that's just going to hold beautifully. It's a crazy world we're living in, literally. We're gonna, I don't know, let's look at the weekly. All right, so there's 2 levels left on the weekly, 3 actually. The all-time high, obviously, and there's the weekly close, which is supposed to be a very strong resistance, and then there's this high here, which obviously must have some stops residing there. We're in 7 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna try and keep this short. I think I've pointed out in previous videos that if we get here and we go past it, it's gonna blow off like easily. And if that's not on leverage yet or whatever overexposure people can have, then it's gonna go up here. And if that's not gonna always going up here, so I'm sticking to my narrative that as long as this is an organic pump, which it is, because it's entirely fueled by spot buys. There's no leverage. There's no premium on derivatives. It's crazy. So I cannot tell you to short it right here, even though, you know, technical analysis 101 says, hey, this is a fucking rising wedge. You should short it. And then here there is a rising broadening wedge, and a lot of people will tell you that's bearish too, but we're literally, as I showed you these accelerations, we're past the 5th acceleration. The 5th acceleration held. Once you pass that, the market just becomes irrational, but it's not irrational yet. It's about to become irrational. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I point you to the previous video and the video before that where I'm telling I'm an irrational bull, and 17, 18, 19k, it's all fair game. And when I said this 2 weeks ago, everyone told me I was crazy. We're at 17k right now. I think euphoria is very soon to climax. We're literally at the edge. There's a little bit time left. Doesn't have to be exactly the 23rd, could be the 28th, 25th, but it's a general guideline that comes from a high time frame analysis, so we have to be a little bit loose. It could be today, but watch for this diagonal. If we break that, oh god, are you gonna see a pump up here? Or even further. Let's just measure something together, okay? So let's measure the height of what seems to be the rising wedge. So it's not a rising wedge, right? But let's just pick this and add it here. So this is the corrective structure and then expansion of the correct what? All right. Well, so if what is about to come is an impulsive move, it should not stop at a one-to-one relation because it's impulsive and this is corrective, and impulsive moves generally move higher. And if we are really parabolic, especially then, we should see extension. So either we add kind of like this move up here, or we look at the extension of this range, and the 1618 is beautiful up there. Let's try and see what happens if we actually grab this one like that, and we add it here. This is where it gets scary. Then you get the 1618 up here above 20k. So honestly, I think this is going to get blown out of the water. Might have some resistance, but eventually I think the blow of top is going to occur here or going to occur here. And if it's really bad, all the way up there. So my approach here is to get the fuck out of my leverage and then get into some fiat exposure, maybe even as we move higher. If eventually prices continues to rocket up, which is very unlikely after just continuing here, then I'll get to buy back. And if that's higher than I initially sold, fine. If it's lower, perfect. If it's the top, superb, right? So my super clean chart got messed up really quickly today. Let's go back to the weekly. I don't know. We're gonna test the 3-year range high, guys and girls. I'm almost certain of it. And euphoria is so close to crazy. I'm telling people on Twitter, even though I'm limited to, I don't know, 6 more tweets before I've sold everything, that I'm about to sell, and all that happens is that I'm just being annihilated. And there's like happy bears underexposed to Bitcoin, overexposed to altcoins, asking me when alts pump, and they're very happy about a Bitcoin dump. Well, here's the thing: when Bitcoin is gonna dump, I think a lot of these alts are gonna, shit the bed. So I wouldn't be happy about that if you're in alts and underexposed to Bitcoin, that a Bitcoin dump is going to help your alts. It's not. All right, so this was 30 minutes on Bitcoin. Logically, I have to spend a lot of time on Bitcoin this week because it's the asset that's performing. We talked about ETH BTC last week, took the short, rode the short, hit the short. You can see, I'm not convinced it's going to bounce here, so I haven't bought. I seriously think we could go lower up here to around 240, 250. This is unless it starts to round up here very slowly. This sell-off here is a little bit steep to my liking. But what I can see happen is this to slowly round up, and then it's going to remind me a little bit of the bottom that Bitcoin had in 2018. So in that scenario, what I see happen is that we come back up here, rate these highs probably, and then come back down here, find support, rate the highs again, have another sell-off, and then see the actual reversal. So I'm not in a rush to buy here, as I expect it to be able to come down here. But what I do think is that if it actually regains this range, that I do want to have exposure when it retests around here or here. And then, the upside is quite dramatically. I do have to make a side note that it very much will depend on the performance of Bitcoin too, because I don't feel like being exposed to ETH BTC when Bitcoin is going to dump like super hard. So either ETH BTC is going to go sideways as Bitcoin dumps, or it's just going to capitulate up here, or it's going to capitulate as Bitcoin pumps to 18, 19, 20k. There's too many possibilities, too many scenarios right here, right now, and I think this sell-off is just a little bit too steep for me to really think this is going to be around the bottom. Not saying that it cannot happen, since it's a sincere possibility, but right now all eyes are on Bitcoin. I took my short, made up for an earlier loss up here, and that's it. And we're gonna be looking at this again. My ideal scenario is that Bitcoin pumps, ETH BTC capitulates, and then ETH USD capitulates too, as Bitcoin makes its 30, 25 to 35% correction. If that happens, then I think I want to have exposure to ETH again. It makes a lot of sense because it generally just pumps harder and dumps harder. So let's see what happens. Litecoin, it's been going up strongly. I'm gonna develop a new entry thesis for this. This is not. This is gonna revert. I'm sure of it. I'm not gonna take an entry now because there's too much fuckery ahead on Bitcoin. So let's stick to patience, and I think this is gonna make up for a very nice rally pretty soonish. Yeah, this just looks beautiful. Like it's dry, but I think I'm gonna get in as it passes back above this region, the gray box, which is a little bit higher than it is right now, or if it kind of pulls back here. But until Bitcoin has done raging and dumping, I'm not really sure, because what I think is gonna happen is that Bitcoin is gonna pump, alts may or may not further bleed, and then it's gonna dump. If the alts that haven't bled but pumped with Bitcoin, I'm pretty sure they're gonna dump with Bitcoin and the other way around. So patience. I got smoked twice already, so let's let it develop and hopefully get some action. And if not, I mean, let's be honest, I'm heavily exposed to Bitcoin, and it's been doing me a great favor. That's it. Maybe see you next week. Maybe see you in a couple of days. Market's hot, so take care. Be safe. Don't short the coin yet, and hopefully you get an exit. Peace.